The math behind this Senate cycle is brutally simple, and it's worth laying out before we touch a single state. Republicans are defending 53 seats. Because they control the vice presidency, they only need 50 to keep the majority. Democrats need to flip 4 Republican seats without losing a single one of their own. That's the entire strategic picture for November. And once you understand that asymmetry, every individual race on this map makes a lot more sense. Let's work through it in the order polls actually close, because that's how the picture builds in real time on election night, and the sequencing itself tells you something about strategy. The first wave closes at 7 p.m. Eastern Kentucky, Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia. Kentucky is an open seat, Mitch McConnell retiring after 7 terms, and Congressman Andy Barr holds an 11-point edge in the polling average, 49 to 48, enough to call it likely red. Virginia is the opposite kind of race entirely. Mark Warner running for a 4th term with a 19-point lead, though the actual final margin will probably land closer to 15, still comfortably solid blue territory. South Carolina brings a genuinely unusual dynamic. Darlene Graham running to succeed her late brother Lindsey Graham, backed by a Trump endorsement and an 89% chance of locking up the nomination according to prediction markets, projected to win by roughly 10, likely red. And Georgia is the one race in this first wave that actually matters strategically. Jon Ossoff defending the seat he won by barely 1 point in a 2021 runoff, now leading Mike Collins by 6.7 points as the incumbent. Georgia remains one of the most competitive states in the country. Trump only carried it by 2 points in 2024, so this stays likely blue, but genuinely contestable. By the way, please leave your questions or comments in the comments section. I will answer each one individually as time permits. Also, I would be very happy if you liked the video and subscribe to my channel. Now, let's continue. Half an hour later, Ohio, West Virginia, and North Carolina close. Ohio is a special election, appointed incumbent Jon Husted, defending the 2 years left on J.D. Vance's term against Sherrod Brown, who lost his own Senate seat just 2 years ago. Husted's lead is narrow, 1.8 points, but consistent, enough to rate the race lean red. West Virginia is automatic, the second most conservative state in the country behind only Wyoming, solid red without debate. North Carolina is the single most consequential race on the entire map from a strategic standpoint, an open seat with former Governor Roy Cooper facing former RNC Chair Michael Whatley. Cooper's lead sits at 5.9 points, enough for likely blue, and this is the Democrats' clearest path to an actual flip, the one state where their 4-seat math genuinely starts. The 8 p.m. hour is the biggest single closing of the night, 12 races at once, and it's worth moving through the safe calls quickly so we can focus on where the real strategy lives. Oklahoma, Alabama, and Louisiana are solid red without complication. Open seats with clear front-runners in Kevin Hern, Barry Moore, and Julia Letlow, respectively. Tennessee stays comfortably Republican with Bill Hagerty, and Mississippi holds 2, Cindy Hyde-Smith of 8 points in a state Trump carried by 23. Florida is a special election worth flagging tactically. Ashley Moody defending the final 2 years of Marco Rubio's term, still likely red at a 7-point lead, but notably closer than Florida races have trended in recent cycles. Illinois goes likely blue. Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton up roughly 10 points after Dick Durbin's retirement opened the seat. The real tactical tension in this hour is in New England. Maine is the single closest race in the entire country. Susan Collins, running for a 6th term, is the only incumbent this cycle running in a state her own party didn't carry at the presidential level. Kamala Harris won Maine by 6 points in 2024. The polling average has her tied with Democratic nominee Troy Jackson, and normally a tie with no incumbent advantage would be a true toss-up. But Collins has a documented history of overperforming in races exactly like this one, trailing throughout 2020 and still winning by nearly double digits, which is why this gets called tilt red rather than an even coin flip. New Hampshire runs the opposite direction. Chris Pappas holding just over a 5-point lead against former Senator John Sununu, enough for a narrow, likely blue call, though Sununu's Senate experience makes this one worth watching closely. Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Delaware round out the hour as safe Democratic holds with Ed Markey, Cory Booker, and Chris Coons. At 8,030, only Arkansas closes. Tom Cotton up 10 points, enough for a likely red call rather than a truly safe one, which tells you even Cotton's team isn't taking this cycle entirely for granted. The 9 p.m. hour is the largest and most strategically loaded closing of the entire night, 11 states at once, and this is where the map's real decisions get made. Michigan is the marquee race. Mike Rogers leads Abdul El-Sayed by just 1.9 points, but the tactical detail here is about candidate quality on both sides. El-Sayed emerged as the more divisive of the three Democratic primary contenders, and that alone has pushed the market-implied odds of a Republican flip from 20% a few months ago to 43% now. A genuinely dramatic swing that likely still understates Rogers' real position given how consistently the campaign has broken his way. This gets called lean red, a projected flip. Minnesota runs the counter trend. Peggy Flanagan up 3.4 points against Michelle Tafoya. Enough for lean blue in a state Democrats have carried in every presidential election since 1976, though the shrinking margin shows real erosion. Iowa goes lean red. Ashley Hinson up 3.6 in a state Trump carried by 13 points in 2024, no longer the genuine battleground it once was. South Dakota, Wyoming, and Louisiana are non-competitive holds. Nebraska is the surprise of the hour. Incumbent Pete Ricketts up just 4 points against independent Dan Osborne, despite Trump's 20-plus point win there in 2024. Still enough for a lean red call given a 71% survival probability in the prediction market. Kansas goes likely red. Roger Marshall up 6 against a genuinely credible Democratic challenge. Colorado and New Mexico both land likely blue, with John Hickenlooper and Ben Ray Lujan both up double digits in their re-election bids. And Texas delivers the tactical headline of the entire cycle. Ken Paxton leading by just 1.3 points in a race Democrats have poured enormous resources into for cycle after cycle without ever closing the deal. The gap is real but still favors Republicans, lean red. The remaining hours fill in mostly uncontested ground. Montana solid red with Kurt Alme up 16. Idaho solid red with Jim Risch up 24. Oregon likely blue with Jeff Merkley cruising, and finally, at 1 a.m. Eastern, Alaska closes the night with one of the most closely watched races on the entire map. Incumbent Dan Sullivan defending a seat he first won by just over 2 points back in 2014 against a comeback bid from former Congresswoman Mary Peltola. Sullivan leads by exactly 1 point, enough for tilt red, but this is as thin a margin as the map produces anywhere. Add it all up across every single closing, and here's where the math actually lands. Republicans finished the cycle with 53 seats, Democrats with 47. The one flip in the Democrats' favor is North Carolina. The one flip in the Republicans' favor is Michigan, which offsets it entirely. While the GOP also holds on to every genuinely contested seat, Maine, Ohio, Texas, and Alaska. Strategically, that means Democrats' 4-seat requirement wasn't just missed. It was missed by exactly the margin that Michigan flipping the other direction created. The party needed a clean sweep of the competitive map and instead lost the one race, Michigan, that would have made the other gains matter. That's the tactical reality underneath this cycle. It was never really about whether Democrats could find winnable states. It was about whether they could hold every single one of them at once, and based on the latest numbers, they can't quite get there.